You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Coming up in the next hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi underlines the importance of accelerating efforts to ensure cleaner, more sustainable future for all during the G20 Summit. Prime Minister Modi holds bilateral talks with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in Rio, deliver a joint statement. India pushes for clean energy by highlighting climate action at COP29 Summit in Baku, Azerbaijan. Ukraine hits Russia with US missiles for the first time on the war's 1,000th day. Russian President Putin lowers the threshold for a nuclear strike. US envoy in Beirut says end to war between Israel and Hezbollah is within our grasp. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in the third session of the G20 Brazil on sustainable development and energy transition in Rio. Prime Minister Modi underlined the importance of accelerating efforts to ensure cleaner, more sustainable future for all, including through mainstreaming the Varanasi principles of life and initiatives such as International Solar Alliance, One World, One Sun, One Grid and the Global Biofuel Alliance. Prime Minister said Varanasi Action Plan will accelerate achievement of the SDGs. He added that under Brazil presidency, priority accorded to implement these goals. PM mentioned that over the last 1 decade, more than homes for 40 million people were built, and in the last 5 years, clean water supply was ensured for 120 million homes. He added that efforts are based on traditional Indian thought, which is progressive and balanced, while he added that India is first country to fulfill the commitments under Paris Agreement. India made green transition a people's movement, and over 10 million families registered for solar rooftop program. PM added that India is sharing successful experiences with friendly countries, particularly the Global South. World leaders met on the margins of the G20 Leaders Summit in Rio on the second and final day. India's Prime Minister met Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni along with the head of states of Singapore, Portugal, Norway, Spain, Mexico, along with WHO, UN, World Bank, IMF and WTO took part in the session. The leaders emphasized the power of digital public infrastructure, AI and data-driven governance in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and transforming lives of people globally. Brazil's president urged leaders at the summit to increase their targets for cutting greenhouse emissions that drive climate change. On the sidelines of the G20 summit in Rio, India's Prime Minister on Tuesday met Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. During the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, took stock of the full range of bilateral ties while reaffirming India's commitment to improving cooperation in sectors like energy, biofuels, defense and agriculture. Prime Minister Modi complimented President Lula on various efforts of Brazil during their G20 presidency. The Brazilian president told Prime Minister Modi that they have incorporated several things in their G20 which were inspired from India's presidency. President Lula added that Brazil wanted to reach the level of efficiency in organizing the summit that India had shown last year. Brazil is hosting the 19th G20 summit. India is part of the G20 Troika, along with Brazil and South Africa. Prime Minister Modi also held talks with Chilean President Gabriel Boric on the sidelines of the summit. The talks focused on how to deepen relations in pharmaceuticals, technology, space, along with several other areas. Prime Minister Modi said it is pleasing to see that Ayurveda is gaining popularity in Chile. Prime Minister agreed that India's ties with Chile are getting stronger across various sectors. Prime Minister Modi also held bilateral talks with President of Argentina, Javier Milei, on the sidelines of the summit. Both leaders reviewed India-Argentina strategic partnership and agreed to further deepen and diversify the bilateral ties, particularly in areas of digital technology, pharmaceuticals, defense, space, energy, mineral resources and railways. This was the first meet between the two leaders. As the G20 Summit in Brazil wrapped up, leaders gathered for a special family photo session. Brazil G20 saw a launch of Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. Brazil also launched a roadmap to make multilateral development banks better, established the Women's Empowerment Working Group, set out key principles on trade and sustainable development, and committed to tripling global renewable energy capacity by 2030. On the occasion, the baton for the next G20 was also passed from Brazil to South Africa. Meanwhile, Indian Union Minister Kirthivaradhan Singh highlighted the issue faced by Global South countries due to climate change as he addressed the COP29 summit in Baku, Azerbaijan.
Addressing the COP29 summit in Azerbaijan's Baku, India's Union Minister of State for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Kirthivaradhan Singh, highlighted the climate action including push for clean energy taken by India.
These have not dampened India's resolve and commitment to take ambitious climate actions. We achieved our 2015 NDC targets on emission intensity reduction and non-fossil based installed electricity generation capacity much earlier than 2030 and have further enhanced our ambitions in these sectors. India's renewable energy capacity has nearly tripled from its 2014 levels, and we are on course to achieve the 500 gigawatt target by 2030.
In his opening remarks at the G20, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted India's strides in sustainable agriculture. He said that the country has developed 2,000 climate-resilient crop varieties. G20 leaders' push for sustainable development and the transition to cleaner energy became the focus of the COP summit.
The G20 has now issued its leaders' communique, and we are grateful for the support they have pledged for the COP29 presidency. We appreciate the signal that they have sent of their intention to accelerate the reform of the international financial architecture. We thank them for their support for a successful NCQG outcome in Baku. We now need to translate political will into practical work.
Rich nations are being urged to significantly raise their pledge of $100 billion a year in financing for poorer countries. But disagreements remain over how much the deal should entail and what types of financing should be included. Armed with a guitar and placards, members of the African Climate Justice Alliance demanded aid for countries battling extreme weather events. Bureau Report, DD India.
Moving on, Germany has long complained about lack of skilled workers, and the country's economy has been paying a price for it. Now some German companies are appealing to the government to step in and help. Lars Holter is with DW, joins me from Berlin. Lars, what are you hearing about this latest initiative?
Thanks for having me. Yes, indeed, Germany is having massive problems filling skilled and specialized jobs. Much of it has to do with the country's demographics. Over the past few years and also for the next couple of years, we will have the so-called baby boomer generation retire. That's a massive part of the German workforce, and there are not enough young people coming after to fill those jobs. So we've been having problems in all kinds of business sectors. It takes longer to build homes. It's hard to find plumbers and electricians. There are not enough nurses and people working in care. And yes, in the high-tech field, there's so much unfilled demand for skilled workers that it's been slowing down progress. Now, the Association of German Startups says that the government should cut bureaucracy and lower hurdles for immigrants, make it not only more attractive for people from abroad to come and work in Germany, but make it easier and faster. Here's just one mind-boggling fact about immigrating to Germany for work. You can't actually file for a work permit if you can't provide a lease for an apartment. However, it's almost impossible to find an apartment and rent from abroad, like before you're even here. It would be so much easier to let people come here, start work, and deal with finding accommodation then.
So what do you think will happen now? Will the German government ease immigration laws?
Well, that's the sad part. Right now, we're in a bit of a crisis with the three-coalition government in disarray, and we're heading into elections early next year. So for now, it seems no one is going to do anything, and then everything takes a while here. Once we have a new government, we'll see what the priorities are. But one thing is certain, we've known, and I mean politicians have known, about the lack of skilled workers in Germany for a long time. So it should definitely be something they'll be working on quickly, especially since there are some ideas out there that would be rather easy to put in place, including digitalizing the immigration effort. Then again, even that isn't really easy in Germany, where generally digitalization hasn't gone as far as one would like. But the pressure is certainly there, and it doesn't come just from outside groups. As a matter of fact, the economy ministry has just put out a report stating that more needs to be done to attract workers from abroad, including actively recruiting in other countries. So I guess the political will is there. It's just unclear how fast the government can act on it.
Lars Holter, thank you. On the sidelines of G20 in Rio, Prime Minister held bilateral talks with Australian PM Anthony Albanese in Brazil. The leaders held discussions in areas of mutual interest. Prime Minister Modi said in the last 2 years, India-Australia ties grew immensely across sectors.
Defense industry, critical mineral, renewable energy, shipbuilding, space, स्पोर्ट्स जैसे क्षेत्रों में आपसी सहयोग की नई संभावनाओं पर काम करेंगे। पारस्परिक लाभदायक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इकोनॉमिक कोऑपरेशन समझौते के लिए काम किया जाएगा।
South Asia's largest maritime thought leadership forum, Sagar Manthan, the Great Oceans Dialogue, is being held in the national capital. Leading the Norwegian delegation, Sine Brutseth said that her country's maritime priorities include a global rules-based order that encompasses freedom of navigation, maritime security, further cooperation with India in other sectors.
With us, Signe Brutseth. She's the Director General of the Department of Regional Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Norway. Thank you for speaking to DD India. You're at the Great Oceans Dialogue. Tell us about Norway's participation and how do you see the collaboration between the two countries moving forward, be it maritime security or the blue economy?
Yes, I'm very happy to be here at this conference. Norway and India are important and great partners when it comes to maritime affairs and the blue economy. We are, of course, here now with a delegation both from the business side, from the research side, and also with our Shipping Owners Association. So this is a testament and proof to the very concrete collaboration that we have between Norway and India. And we are looking forward to deepening this collaboration, hoping also that we will have oceans as part of the next India-Nordics Summit coming up next year.
What more is expected from the two countries moving ahead in terms of investments from Norwegian companies and vice versa?
We see now that Norwegian ship owners, they are looking towards India also when it comes to building ships. We hope that we can maybe have some cooperation in port development. And of course also we have recently signed a EFTA-India free trade agreement, which hopefully also will help us to boost the trade between the two countries.
Right.
El Salvador court ruled to bring a former president to trial for their alleged roles in the murder of 6 Jesuit priests during the country's civil war in 1989. Former President Alfredo Cristiani and 9 retired military officials are charged with murder against the priests and 2 female collaborators. The civil war between El Salvador's government and the leftist National Liberation Front lasted from 1980 to 1992 and resulted in some 75,000 deaths. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi set to embark on a historic visit to Guyana from November 19th to 21st. King of Spain visits Chiva, the epicenter of floods in the country. Surveillance camera captures a wild Siberian tiger in China.
G20 meeting taking place in Rio on the 18th and 19th of this month. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be participating here as well, along with the leaders of the world's 20 largest economies who will be deliberating on key issues such as eliminating hunger and poverty, sustainable development. For all the latest on the 2024 G20 Summit in Rio, join me, Gautam Roy, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi's next destination on his 3-nation tour is Guyana, the upcoming state visit is set to strengthen bilateral ties across various sectors like trade, energy and agriculture. To discuss the significance of this visit and India's growing partnership with Guyana, DD India's Siddharth Bharadwaj spoke exclusively with Dr. Amit Telang, India's High Commissioner to Cooperative Republic of Guyana.
This will be the first visit by any Indian Prime Minister in almost 5 decades. To talk more on this, I've been joined by India's High Commissioner to Guyana, Dr. Amit Telang. It's an exciting moment for both India and Guyana. Incredibly pivotal moment for both the countries, isn't it?
The diaspora and the Indian community in general are looking forward to this visit because traditionally our two countries, they are very closely bound because of the culture, the common culture and traditions, and the fact that many of the Guyanese, they consider India still as their motherland because their ancestors came from India, and that connection in fact is still alive. They look at India, and especially in the recent years, considering the profile of Honorable Prime Minister Modi and what he has done, his global profile, everyone is excited.
What do you have to say about diaspora's role, in bridging the gap between both the countries?
Since 2019, when the actual exploration and the oil extraction started in Guyana, today Guyana is one of the major producers of crude, and in the coming years probably the production is going to increase even more than that. And on the other hand, there is India or Bharat, for example, because we are also one of the fastest growing major economies. We are the major I would say in terms of development as well. We are experiencing a very fast growth, and we have a lot of demand for oil. So we are among the major consumers of oil today. So we are natural partners, I would say, because Guyana is a major producer, we are a major consumer, and the kind of relationship that we share, I think it's a win-win situation.
Could you tell us about how this visit will strengthen the energy ties between India and Guyana?
We have received requests from the Guyanese side, especially, for example, in skill development, because this kind of activity requires a lot of technical expertise, a lot of infrastructure, and we will be in a position to provide that to Guyana. Even if we talk about, say, petroleum engineering and exploration and many of the allied areas, we can work in that area. So I think MOU of course is very much on the anvil, but I can also say that the cooperation has been ongoing. A lot of engineers from the Ministry of Natural Resources and other agencies, they are going to India, they take courses in India under the iTech program and various other options that we offer. So I think already a lot of cooperation is happening, and it will increase further as an outcome, of course, of this MOU, but in general also as an outcome of this visit.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador, for giving your valuable insights today.
The Indian Arrival Monument in Georgetown stands as a powerful symbol of history and resilience, honouring the first Indian indentured immigrants who arrived in Guyana in 1838. DD India correspondent Siddharth Bharadwaj visited this iconic site to explore its cultural significance and also spoke to members of the Indian community about their heritage, expectations from Prime Minister Modi's upcoming visit.
India and Guyana share strong cultural ties. In fact, 40% of the total population in Guyana comprise of Indians. I am at a historic monument right now, which marks the arrival of Indians to Guyana. And now their descendants form strong social and cultural fabric here. And this is happening for the first time that any Indian Prime Minister is coming to Guyana for over half a century. I have some members from the Indian community here. Let's talk to them and let's ask them how excited are they.
I'm very excited like every other Guyanese because for us, he's an icon, he's a role model. And I remember one time I was in Bangalore and had the opportunity to actually, he was at the Pravasi event and he said, and as a statement he made, it still resonates with me. And he said that despite Indians are across the world, their hearts beats for India. And for me, that's a very deep and a very profound statement. And for me, that is what makes it even more exciting that after so many years, Narendra Modi, who has really distinguished himself as a world leader, has won the admiration of many young people. Especially we followed his work, especially with the entire Ayodhya temple, the transformation that is going on in India, and of course for us here, we're just excited to see what it brings for Guyana. Already Guyana and India has an excellent working relationship. Like I would always say that we are part of the DNA, you understand. We cannot separate India from Guyana because we are the descendants. We breed, we think, we live the culture experience of India. So for such an iconic leader to visit us here, it's really and truly a testimony to the great relationship that exists between Guyana and India.
We are expecting a lot from Modi ji. He has visited Guyana here before, and when he was in the Parliament of India a few years ago, he's got very good friends also here. Now we expect Modi ji to, as the Indian youth is the strength of India. We want a lot of collaboration with the youth from Guyana and India, and we want to help, we want Modi ji to help Guyanese to get an excellent, broadband satellite network, so they can, it's very affordable for people to get on to the drive of digitalization, like what India has done.
The Indian community here in Guyana is very much excited, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to visit Guyana. They say that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit will certainly strengthen the bilateral ties between both the countries, and they also say that they expect a lot with Prime Minister visit. With camera person Saurabh and Senthil, this is Siddharth Bharadwaj reporting with DD India in Guyana.
India's Prime Minister is set to embark on a historic visit to Guyana from November 19th to 21st, first by an Indian PM in over 5 decades. DD India's Siddharth Bharadwaj tells us why it's significant.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to embark on a historic state visit to Guyana from 19th to 21st of November at the invitation of Guyana's President, Dr. Mohammad Irfan Ali. This is the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister in over 5 decades. On the agenda are several key moments, beginning with the delegation level talk between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Irfan Ali, where both the leaders are expected to talk on a wide range of topics from defense to trade, to education, to energy, among others. President Irfan Ali visited India in 2023 and participated in the 17th Prasar Bharati Divas, where he was also awarded Prasar Bharati Samman, and he's keen to strengthen ties with India. One highlight of the visit is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's address to Guyanese Parliament, a gesture which underscores India's commitment to democracy and strengthening people-to-people ties. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also be meeting the vibrant Indian diaspora who contributes to the diverse social fabric of Guyana. The visit also features the second India CARICOM Summit, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting the CARICOM member nations. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also pay floral tribute to the statue of Father of the Nation Mahatma Gandhi, and he will also be meeting some prominent personalities from the Caribbean. All in all, this will be a significant visit by the Indian Prime Minister, which is poised to reinforce the strong foundation of India-Guyana relations and will also expand India's presence in Caribbean. With camera person Senthil, this is Siddharth Bharadwaj reporting for DD India in Georgetown, Guyana.
And Guyana hopes to expand its cooperation with India into newer areas such as energy and food security, technology and military hardware. In an exclusive interview to DD India's Ramesh Ramachandran, Guyana's President Dr. Mohammad Irfan Ali says he has personally witnessed the transformation of India under leadership of Prime Minister Modi.
Global leadership does not happen by accident. Global leadership occurs when you have strong local leadership in the country itself. And Prime Minister Modi has demonstrated a strength of leadership that has really positioned India globally and has opened up many opportunities for India and a greater level of regard for India. So what I've seen in India is a country that is accelerating at a rapid pace.
President Ali says that he wants Guyana to benefit from India's success in the fields of digitalization and innovation.
Within the coming weeks, we will launch our Forest Guyana Digital School, which is built off of an Indian platform. We have thousands of students studying online at various Indian universities. So what I would say is that a lot of the technological advancement in improving governance efficiency, improving access to service, expanding access to service that you have mastered. Of course, we want to learn and to adopt those technologies here.
And you can watch the full interview of the President of Guyana at 9 a.m. India time, that is 3:30 GMT on Wednesday. Large parts of United Kingdom were blanketed with snow as the country got its first taste of winter, which brought school closures, train delays and an appeal to check on the vulnerable people. Met Department has issued yellow severe weather alerts for snow and ice across northern Scotland, Northern Ireland, central and southern Wales. Earlier, there had been warnings for northern England and Midlands, while snow also fell in areas not covered by the alerts, including central London. Let's now turn to other stories making news around the world. King of Spain, Felipe VI and Queen Letizia began a highly anticipated trip to the epicenter of the deadliest floods in decades. Crowds in the devastated town of Chiva in the eastern Valencia region applauded and shouted, "Long live the King," 3 weeks after the October 29 disaster that had claimed some 227 lives. A surveillance video captured the moment of a wild Siberian tiger who rammed itself into a large iron gate, narrowly missing a farmer in North China's province. The video from Monday witnesses the man stepping out on the street to check on the tiger's whereabouts. Upon spotting the tiger, he hurries back into the closed gate, which the enormous cat hurled itself against. And still to come on DD India News Hour. On the sidelines of the G20 Summit in Rio, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar meets his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi.
G20 meeting taking place in Rio on the 18th and 19th of this month. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be participating here as well, along with the leaders of the world's 20 largest economies who will be deliberating on key issues such as eliminating hunger and poverty, sustainable development. For all the latest on the 2024 G20 Summit in Rio, join me, Gautam Roy, only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Our top stories. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi underlines the importance of accelerating efforts to ensure cleaner, sustainable future for all during G20 Summit. India pushes for clean energy by highlighting climate action at COP29 Summit in Baku. Ukraine hits Russia with US missiles for the first time on the war's 1000th day. Russian President Putin lowers threshold for nuclear strike. On the sidelines of the G20 Summit in Rio, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. The two leaders reviewed progress in bilateral relations, particularly focusing on border issues.
On the sidelines of the G20 Summit in Rio, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. The leaders noted the progress in the recent disengagement in the India-China border areas. In a post on X, Dr. Jaishankar said, "We noted the progress in the recent disengagement in the India-China border areas and exchanged views on the next steps in our bilateral ties. Also discussed the global situation." The ministers recognized that the disengagement in the border areas had contributed to the maintenance of peace and tranquility. The discussions focused on the next steps in India-China relations. It was agreed that a meeting of the special representatives and of the Foreign Secretary Vice Minister mechanism will take place soon. Among the steps discussed were the resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra pilgrimage, data sharing on trans-border rivers, direct flights between India and China, and media exchanges. On the global situation and international issues, Dr. Jaishankar noted that India and China have both differences and convergences. Dr. Jaishankar highlighted constructive cooperation between India and China in BRICS, SCO and G20. He emphasized commitment to a multipolar world, including a multipolar Asia. Dr. Jaishankar added that India does not view its relationships through the prism of other nations. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi agreed with Dr. Jaishankar and noted that the leaders had agreed in Kazan on the way forward. The two ministers felt that it was imperative that the focus should be on stabilizing ties, managing differences, and taking the next steps. This meeting adds to a series of high-level interactions between the two nations' foreign ministers. Both leaders last met in Lao PDR on 25th July this year during the ASEAN-related foreign ministers' meetings. On 4th July, they held talks in Astana during a regional gathering. Last year, on 14th July, discussions took place between the two leaders on the sidelines of the ASEAN Regional Forum in Jakarta. In 2022, the two met during the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Bali on 7th July. In the same year, the leaders also met on 25th March when Wang Yi visited India and held direct discussions. On 14th July 2021, a meeting was held between the two leaders during the SCO Foreign Ministers meeting in Dushanbe. They also met on 10 September 2020 during the SCO Foreign Ministers meeting in Moscow. And on 17th June in the same year, the leaders spoke over the phone regarding developments in Ladakh. The latest meeting in Rio underscores continuing diplomatic efforts between India and China as both nations navigate border issues, broader bilateral ties and global tensions. Bureau Report, DD India.
India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, while virtually addressing the 7th India-Japan Indo-Pacific Forum and the 10th India-Japan Track 1.5 dialogue, called for setting ambitious targets and work towards fulfilling them. He termed the India-Japan Strategic Global Partnership as a bilateral relationship of great trust and growing substance.
The India-Japan Special Strategic and Global Partnership serves the cause of regional peace, international stability and global prosperity. It is a bilateral relationship of great trust and growing substance. But precisely because we have come so far in the last decade, it is important that we develop ambitious targets and work towards realizing them. Our convergences are built on the alignment between India's Act East policy, our Indo-Pacific vision of Sagar, and Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific vision, as well as our shared support for the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific.
Moving on, the US is optimistic that the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel will come to an end as its envoy holds talks with Lebanese leader in Beirut. Details in our next report.
Diplomacy has taken the center stage as efforts to diffuse tensions in West Asia make progress. US envoy Amos Hochstein, who is currently in Beirut, has said that he held very constructive talks with the Speaker of Lebanon's parliament and that there was a real opportunity to bring the conflict between the Iran-backed Hezbollah and Israel to an end.
This is a moment of decision making. I'm here in Beirut to facilitate that decision, but it's ultimately the decision of the parties to reach a conclusion to this conflict. It is now within our grasp.
The meeting comes after the Lebanese government and Hezbollah agreed to a US-drafted ceasefire proposal. According to a Lebanese official, Lebanon's remarks on the proposal were in line with the UNSC Resolution 1701, which ended the 2006 conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. The resolution, whose terms require Hezbollah to have no armed presence in the area between the Lebanese-Israeli border and the Litani River, is yet to be fully implemented. The diplomatic efforts have not led to halt in attacks. Several people were injured as 40 rockets fired from Lebanon hit central and northern Israel. Buildings were damaged in Israeli strikes on central Beirut. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Washington had reservations about Israel entering Gaza to dismantle Hamas infrastructure post the October 7th attack.
To accomplish these goals, we entered Gaza. I must tell you, members of the Knesset, that the United States objected, made reservations, also expressed objection. I did not threaten, it did not apply sanctions, not at that time. It expressed reservations and suggested we not enter Gaza. It said that it could be dealt with from the air. It sent experts and we decided to follow our view and we go in with ground forces.
Earlier, UNSC members called for a rise in humanitarian aid to Gaza. Bureau Report, DD India.
As the Russia-Ukraine conflict reaches its 1000th day, it has reshaped geopolitics, devastated millions of lives, continues to evolve with no end in sight. Here's a closer look at how the conflict has unfolded and its far-reaching impact. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay brings us this report. On 24th of February 2022, the world watched as Russian forces launched a special military operation in Ukraine. While Ukraine and its allies labelled it an unprovoked act of war. The ongoing conflict between Russia-Ukraine marks its 1000th day. So far, infantry operations have taken center stage, highlighting their indispensable nature. From hand-to-hand combat in urban zones like Donetsk to larger merchandised assaults in Kursk, both sides are vying for supremacy. Even foreign involvement highlights this importance. As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said, the number of North Korean troops stationed inside Russia could grow to 100,000.
Putin has brought 11,000 North Korean troops to Ukraine's borders. This contingent may grow to 100,000. While some European leaders think about some elections or something like this at Ukraine's expense, Putin is focused on winning this war. He will not stop on his own.
Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a treaty into law this month on strategic partnership with North Korea, which includes a mutual defense provision. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte stressed that Ukraine will need more aid and more money in order to prevail over Russia as he arrived for a foreign affairs and defense meeting with members of the European Union in Brussels.
Today marks 1000 days of the full Russian onslaught, the unprovoked full Russian onslaught on Ukraine. So today we'll discuss how we can help Ukraine to prevail. That means more aid, more money, and we have to make available to them, particularly now that the North Koreans have come on board.
After Biden's key approval, Ukraine reportedly launched an attack on Russia's Bryansk region overnight using 6 US. We're now, in fact, taking you live to the MEA press conference in Rio, Brazil.
And Shri Vikram Mishri, Foreign Secretary of India, to brief us on this, on Prime Minister's engagement in the BRICS Summit. We are also joined by our ambassador to Brazil, Shri Suresh Reddy, as also Srimati Pooja Kapoor, who happens to be Sous Sherpa of the G20 process. With that, first I invite Shri Amitabh Kant to make his remarks. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Randir. I'm really delighted to share with you the outcomes of this very, very significant engagement of the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, and its participation in the just concluded 19th G20 Summit in Rio. And this was the 11th G20 Summit in which the Honorable Prime Minister was participating. This summit in Rio had the overarching theme of building a just world and a sustainable planet. And this year, the G20 has delivered a very strong message on the fight against hunger and poverty. One of the very important outcomes of this summit has been that leaders of G20 were invited, countries and heads of international organizations, they were all invited. Then they have participated and launched the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. And India has also joined this alliance as one of the 147 founding members. This includes about 81 countries, the African Union and European Union, 24 international organizations, 9 international financial institutions, and 31 philanthropic and non-governmental organizations. So the Rio de Janeiro G20 leaders' declaration was very intense discussion. Prior to the Leaders' Summit, there was a Sherpa negotiation which went on for about 7 days non-stop. And, after a huge number of virtual sessions, physical sessions, the declaration has been passed. And this declaration really demonstrates the unity of G20 towards a range of issues. And the declaration focuses on hunger and poverty, it focuses on climate and energy, it focuses on developmental issues, it focuses a lot on, accelerating the pace of sustainable development goals. There's been a huge emphasis on climate and energy also, but it also focuses a lot on, a major component of this was geopolitics. The declaration has underlines the immense human suffering and adverse impacts of ongoing conflicts. It builds on everything that the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration had said in its geopolitics para relating to the planet and people, and it largely that the para in Rio has been drawn from the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration. And the declaration also has expressed concern over the situation in Middle East because that was a new conflict which had come up, and therefore that there is a complete para on the Middle East conflict as well. But I would like to point out that the Prime Minister spoke in 2 sessions, one on hunger and poverty and the other on sustainable development and energy transition. And in both of them, he highlighted the huge impact which India had made. In the first one, he highlighted about lifting 250 million people above the poverty line and what measures India has taken. So his speeches are available. So, and in the second one on sustainable development, he emphasized how India is meeting this target of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy, or India is the only country of G20 which has achieved its targets 9 years ahead of schedule and has already achieved 200 gigawatt. But I would emphasize that many of the ambitions, as you are all aware that the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration was under Prime Minister's leadership, was very inclusive, it was very forward-looking, and it was very ambitious. And many of the ambitions and the key outcomes from the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration find a place in the Rio Declaration. And I would emphasize that the importance of mainstreaming life, that is lifestyle of, for environment figures here, the speedy implementation of G20 2023 action plan on accelerating progress on SDG figures here, the acknowledgement of digital public infrastructure and the role of data for development figures here, the encouragement of women-led development figures here, and the recognition of towards better, bigger and more effective multilateral development bank figures here. There is a Deccan high-level principle on food security and nutrition which has been reiterated. The role of traditional and complementary medicine figures here, and in climate moving from billions to trillions of dollars figures here, and India push for ambition in a very big way on climate finance by bringing in the concept of billions to trillions, as well as emphasizing the new collective qualified goals of new funding. And the resolution, the declaration reiterates what was said in New Delhi on tripling renewable energy and doubling energy efficiency. And therefore, many of these issues find a place here. The Prime Minister has reiterated India's commitment to sustainable development. He had highlighted in a very major way the strides made in energy transition, including the renewable energy sector. I would merely say that there has been a lot of emphasis on what has been achieved earlier in New Delhi. And only other point I would like to make is that in addition to this, there was a declaration. A declaration was also done on digital public infrastructure and artificial intelligence and data for governance. And this was important because throughout our G20, we had highlighted and emphasized the digital public infrastructure last year. And this, to my mind, this is a very major step forward, because this was an opportunity to demonstrate that DPI can be a very major driver of removing hunger, poverty and inequality. And the benefits of growth through DPI will flow to the people of the world. So we linked it up with DPI, artificial intelligence, on how data for governance based on our own experience of aspirational district can be used. We had today in the event, several countries participated. We had Italy, Portugal, Spain, Singapore, Norway, Nigeria, and we had the United Nations, World Bank, WTO, IMF, WHO, all of them participating, which now truly demonstrates, and this declaration has also been endorsed by Germany and France, which truly demonstrates that through the G20, we've made digital public infrastructure a worldwide movement based on open source, open API, globally interoperable standard, and therefore for the benefit of the citizens of the world, and therefore they will really own the data. And we are seeing more and more countries of the advanced world, the Western world, also joining us in this collaboration. With these few words, I'll conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now invite Foreign Secretary to brief us on Prime Minister's bilateral meetings and other engagements. Sir.
Thank you, Randhir. As you are probably aware, Prime Minister had the opportunity to meet with a large number of world leaders on the sidelines of the ongoing and just concluded G20 Summit. There were 10 formal bilateral meetings that he had, and besides that, a number of pull-asides as well. There were 6 bilateral meetings yesterday with the newly elected President of Indonesia, the newly elected Prime Minister of Portugal, with the Prime Minister of Italy, the Prime Minister of Norway, the newly elected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and with President Macron. We've already issued press releases in respect of these meetings. If there are any questions about that, I would be happy to answer them. Today, there were 4 bilateral meetings with, first of all, in the morning with the host of the G20 Summit, President Lula of Brazil. Prime Minister also met with the newly elected President of Chile, and also he had his first ever meeting with the President of Argentina. And his bilateral meetings today concluded with the annual India-Australia Summit with the Prime Minister Albanese. This was the second India-Australia Summit. As I said, there were a large number of pull-aside meetings, amongst them with the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Singapore, the Prime Minister of Spain, the President of Egypt, President of the Republic of Korea, the UN Secretary General, and the President of the EU Commission. Let me say just a few words about the meetings that were held today. And we will be issuing press releases about each one of these meetings as well. The first meeting, as I said, was with President Lula of Brazil. Prime Minister congratulated President Lula on the successful organization of the G20 presidency, as well as President Lula's leadership of IBSA, the India-Brazil-South Africa Forum. He commended President Lula's initiative on the launch of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, and also the focus of the G20 agenda on the priorities of the Global South, which, as the Sherpa just mentioned, aligned nearly perfectly and carried forward the valuable work that was done during India's own presidency of the G20 last year. The President and the Prime Minister held discussions on enhancing the India-Brazil strategic partnership. Both of them agreed that there was still more potential to be explored and exploited in this partnership in a variety of areas, ranging from agriculture to defense to digital technology, tourism, biofuels, pharmaceuticals, and space. In agriculture especially, Prime Minister recalled that many years ago it was actually the export of Indian bovine germplasm that led to a revolution in the genetic stock of Brazil's reserves of livestock, and that there were now, both countries were presented with interesting prospects for taking forward this cooperation. Similarly, there was discussion on the possibilities on cooperation in green hydrogen, as well as in the budding defense field. In space, there has already been valuable cooperation between the two sides. ISRO has already launched a couple of satellites for the Brazilian Space Agency. The two sides also agreed on cooperation in the area of artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, biotechnology, and ethanol blending. And the two sides also had, the two leaders also had discussions on the exchange of high-level visits in the coming year. With the President of Chile, as I said, this was the first meeting between the two leaders. This is also, the coming year is also the 75th year of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Prime Minister congratulated President Gabriel Boric Font on assuming office, and the two sides discussed the potential in areas such as trade and pharmaceutical cooperation. There are discussions on a commercial cooperation agreement that are ongoing between the two sides. And the President of Chile expressed a great deal of interest in not just the commercial opportunities with India, but also in wanting to build relations in the field of culture, knowledge, traditions, student exchange, etc. Chile is also an important player in the critical minerals space, and therefore the two sides discussed the possibilities of cooperation in that particular area. The third meeting today was the meeting between Prime Minister and the President of Argentina, Javier Milei. As you are aware, this was again the first ever meeting, bilateral meeting between the two leaders. Prime Minister congratulated President Milei on his election victory last year and on the progress that Argentina had made under his presidency. And President Milei likewise congratulated the Prime Minister on his historic third term, for which the Prime Minister took office in June this year. There were discussions on a number of areas. I should perhaps mention that there was a very rich and vibrant discussion on governance, and the two sides, the two leaders, exchanged their thoughts and their experience in handling issues related to governance. They also expressed satisfaction at the broadening of the strategic partnership between the two countries in various areas. There are opportunities for the two sides to cooperate in areas related to pharmaceuticals, defense technology, critical minerals, particularly lithium. And I should mention that in the lithium space, there's been a significant agreement signed just earlier this year between India and Argentina, whereby an Indian public sector undertaking has entered into an agreement to explore a lithium mine in Argentina. This is possibly the first such initiative by an Indian entity anywhere in the world with regard to lithium and critical minerals. The two sides also looked at the possibilities of cooperation in the peaceful uses of nuclear energy, space, agriculture, science and technology, and information technology. I must mention that with a number of leaders, especially hailing from Latin America, there was discussion on the popularity of yoga, of Ayurveda, of traditional systems of medicine in all of these countries, and leaders agreed on the need to reinforce these ties and look at further popularization of these elements. The last meeting this morning, as I mentioned, was the annual summit between India and Australia. Prime Minister met with Prime Minister Albanese of Australia for the second India-Australia annual summit. This meeting was the 11th meeting between Prime Minister and Prime Minister Albanese. And just shows the intensity of the exchange between the two leaders and the two countries in just the last few years. The Prime Ministers reaffirmed the strength of the multifaceted ties under the India-Australia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. They expressed satisfaction at the fact that since the signing of the ECTA agreement on trade, bilateral trade had increased by nearly 40%. They welcomed the opening of an Indian consulate in Brisbane and the opening of an Australian consulate in Bangalore. Prime Minister welcomed the presence of Australian universities in India. And the two leaders agreed to take forward the already existing cooperation in areas related to defense, critical minerals, ports, space, and shipbuilding. The highlight of the meeting, however, was the launch of the renewable energy partnership between the two countries. With the launch of the renewable energy partnership, both sides expect to bring greater energy and drive to this most important of areas for cooperation between the two sides. Under the partnership, there will be intensified dialogue in the RE sector, especially on diversifying the clean energy supply chain, on accelerating energy transition. Some of the areas that will be a focus under the renewable energy partnership will be solar photovoltaics, green hydrogen, energy storage, and capacity building a workforce that is trained in the transition to renewable energy. There will be annual ministerial meetings of the concerned ministers for renewable energy, and the dialogue, the partnership will also include track 1.5 and track 2 dialogues that will bring in the private sector as well as research institutions. Naturally, there was a lot of discussion on cooperation under the Quad format as well, and on the possibility of encouraging investments between the two countries in both directions. No India-Australia meeting is complete without a mention of cricket, and therefore both Prime Ministers welcomed and sent their best wishes to the two cricket teams that are about to engage in what is possibly amongst the most watched sporting contests anywhere in the planet as the India-Australia Test Series gets underway. Prime Minister Albanese, of course, also made special mention of the diversity of the Indian diaspora, the Indian expatriate community in Australia, and how that was such a strong bridge between the two countries. Let me stop there, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Issues of the Global South were raised during this presidency of Brazil.
Questions. More questions? Yeah. Okay. Gautam.
So this is Gautam Roy from DD India. I just wanted to ask Mr. Kant, in terms of the G20 declaration, the Rio declaration, it had a lot of content on how to tackle climate change, and there was an expectation that it will aid the process that is ongoing in Azerbaijan as well, with the COP29 in terms of reaching some sort of agreement on climate financing, the billions to trillions aspect. Could you tell us how that process has helped along with what has been discussed in Rio?
More questions? Please.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Sakshi from All India Radio. So my question is, how does India view the role of G20 compared to other multilateral forums? And what unique contribution does it believe that G20 can make to address the issues of global challenges that we are facing now?
You have a question here?
Ilya Arkhip of Bloomberg News. Could you please tell us about the India's position on the escalation in conflict between Russia and Ukraine? Is India disappointed that President Putin didn't listen to Prime Minister Modi calls for finding a peaceful solution, and instead he brought North Korean troops into the conflict? Does it change anything for India in terms of how India views this conflict? And has Prime Minister had any discussions about the latest escalation after the North Korean troops arrived to Russia, that there was also recent long-ranging strikes on the Russian territory from the Ukraine? And does India plan to ask Russia to clarify its stance on the use of nuclear weapons because it's updated its nuclear doctrine? Thank you very much. Sorry, it's a bit of too many questions in one, but obviously you understand the sensitivity of the subject. Thank you.
We can take two questions from here and then we'll come back for.
सर मैं असीम मिश्रा डीडी न्यूज़ से सर हिंदी में सवाल कि जिस तरह से क्लाइमेट चेंज को लेकर बहुत सारी बातें हुई है और डिक्लेरेशन में बहुत सारी बातें लिखी गई हैं न्यू कलेक्टिव क्वालिफाइड गोल्स किस तरह से सेट किए गए हैं और किस तरह से क्लाइमेट मिटिगेशन में काम कर सकते क्लाइमेट चेंज को मिटिगेट करने में
ठीक है Sahil, you have another question?
So my question is related to EM's meeting with the Chinese Foreign Minister and on the roadmap ahead for Mansarovar Yatra resumption, which was mentioned in the document.
Sir, thank you. Sir, please.
So let me dwell on a few issues, and I'll, while the broader question of Russia will be touched upon by the Foreign Secretary, but I'll touch upon the G20 aspect of it. But let me first say that the Global South, this is the first time that the G20 was held in Indonesia, then it was held in India, it was Brazil, and then now the baton has been passed on to South Africa. So emerging markets will have to play a very critical role, and if you look at the global growth, while the developing countries are growing at 1.8%, emerging markets are growing at about 4.4%. That means, and according to both IMF and World Bank, for the next 4 decades, 70% of the growth is going to come from the global south. And that is simply because of demographics. And this requires more financial flows to be passed on to the global south countries. And if you look at this particular G20, other than both for hunger and poverty, the focus on inequality, the focus on sustainable development goals, the focus on digital public infrastructure, the focus on nutrition, all that demonstrates the huge commitment that was made. To my mind, both development and climate action are two sides of the same coin. And therefore, climate was also very critical. We were very mindful of the fact on climate not to get into too many specific, other than saying we'll move from billions to trillions or we'll lay down an ambitious NCQG. It was very difficult to get into details because simultaneously, this is the first time that simultaneously you were having a COP at Baku which is going on, and any getting into too many details would have had a very adverse implication on negotiations there, and therefore we were very careful. But we've reiterated the need for tripling of renewable energy, we've reiterated the need for doubling energy efficiency, we've talked about green hydrogen and many other factors. So this is if you read the document in its totality, it's very much a document of the global south. And I would merely say that if you look at the geopolitical paras of this particular G20 declaration, it talks about a comprehensive ceasefire in Gaza in line with the UN Security Resolution 2735 and in Lebanon, both in Gaza and in Lebanon, and that will enable citizens to return safely to their homes on both sides of the blue line. It also talks about the commitment to the vision of a two-state solution where Israel and Palestinian state live side by side in peace within secure and recognized borders. This is as far as the Middle East is concerned. So it talks about a comprehensive ceasefire. And as far as the Russia-Ukraine crisis is concerned, it talks about a comprehensive, just and durable peace, upholding all the principles and all the purposes and principles of the UN Charter for the promotion of peaceful, friendly and good neighborly relations amongst nations. I'm not getting into the details, but it's quite a detailed formulation which also condemns terrorism in all its forms and manifestation. And it also talks about the peaceful resolution of conflicts and efforts, because the intention there was to get into the principles of what is required rather than start naming countries which would have led to a stalemate. So broadly the adverse impact of wars and conflict on citizens and laying down the clear principles was broadly accepted, and that is how it is. But this is very much a G20 presidency, because this is the first time after India brought AU into the G20. And to the question which Madam asked from here, G20 used to account for about 72% of the global GDP, but after India's leadership, we brought AU, Prime Minister's effort brought AU as a member. So actually it's G21 now because of India's effort. And that means that today G20 accounts for 85% of the global GDP. It accounts for about 84% of the global trade. It accounts for almost 80% of the global population. And therefore, it's a very, very inclusive body. It's the only body where decisions taken by it are implemented by multilateral institutions like World Bank or IMF, and therefore calling for a better, bigger and more effective bank, which was again the formulation of the New Delhi Leaders Declaration. India also constituted that committee led by N.K. Singh and Larry Summers. Its recommendations are now being implemented by the World Bank. So all this will lead to greater flow of financial resources to the global south. Thank
you. Let me address these other two questions. I think on the question related to Russia, Ukraine, well, obviously this was a subject that formed part of discussions in a number of bilateral meetings. And as Sherpa has just also read out the formulation related to this issue, which reflects the consensus position at this point in time with regard to this conflict. A number of developments have happened. You cited some of those developments, but I would say that the fundamental position of India and our approach towards the conflict has not changed in any way. We continue to call for a way to end this conflict through a return to dialogue and diplomacy by discussions directly, if need be, between the two sides, and for the international community to play a supportive role in this regard. Obviously, we would be concerned by any kind of escalation that would threaten a more damage and loss of life and destruction to property that has been caused. With regard to what you said about the statements related to nuclear weapons that have been made, if I'm not mistaken, I think the G20 declaration also has a formulation with regard to this. And again, India's position on the possible use of nuclear weapons in this conflict has also been made clear in the past, and there is no change in that. Insofar as the question related to EM's meeting with the Chinese foreign minister is concerned, the meeting took place yesterday, and the two foreign ministers, as they had been mandated by the two leaders when the meeting took place between Prime Minister and President Xi Jinping in Kazan on the sidelines of the BRICS Summit last month. The foreign ministers met to exchange views. They reviewed the progress in the recent disengagement in the India-China border areas, and also discussed the next steps that are to be taken in the bilateral relationship. We've issued a press release also on the meeting, and some of those next steps are outlined in that. The two sides are discussing the possible scheduling of an early meeting between the special representatives of the two sides, and there are meetings at the regular institutional level at the foreign minister, foreign secretary and the vice minister level that are also being discussed. There will be a number of issues of interest that will come up in these meetings. You referred to the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. In fact, the External Affairs Minister did flag this as one of the issues to discuss. But when the institutional mechanisms start meeting, I'm sure a number of these issues will be taken up in those meetings. Thank you.
last point I want to make is that as Troika member, India has played a very key and critical role in all aspects, whether it was climate, whether it was energy, whether it was geopolitics, Prime Minister's own personal relations, bilateral meetings, etc. have all played a very critical role in, and our membership of Troika has been a key catalyst in assisting and supporting Brazil in arriving at a consensus. Thank you.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the close of this press briefing. Thank you very much for your attention.
That was the MEA press conference coming in live from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, after the conclusion of the G20 summit. The press conference, it was highlighted that the Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, Sustainable Development, energy transition in a green ecosystem, accelerating sustainable development goals were some of the highlights and focus areas of Brazil's presidency. It was also mentioned that many important parts of India's New Delhi declaration formed the basis and important component of the Brazil's Rio Declaration. India's digital public infrastructure was of particular interest to leaders in order to facilitate the goals and the achievement of theirs. The number of bilaterals also that Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in, total 10 in number. And important among them was his engagement with Australia's Prime Minister and the launch of the Renewable Energy Partnership between India and Australia. Those were some of the highlights of the MEA press conference. Moving on, India's Home Minister Amit Shah on the second day of his Gujarat visit, India's premier defence university, the National Defence University in Gandhinagar, where the 50th All India Police Science Conference had been organised. Home Minister inaugurated the exhibition of different equipments used in the security sector. He visited many stalls at the exhibition. Addressing the conference, Shah said that after operationalisation of the new criminal laws, people will get justice within 3 years of registering FIR. Dr. V. Anantha Nageshwaran, India's chief economic advisor, has said that if India wants to sustain a growth rate of 6.5 to 7%, having affordable energy prices is very important. The Trump presidency might actually make a big difference in this regard. He added that strong exports and affordability and availability of energy is important to have strong economic growth. He was addressing the 11th SBI Banking and Economic Conclave in Mumbai. Day 2.
Years might be very important from the Indian standpoint in terms of keeping energy prices affordable, and that's very, very critical. If we have to sustain the growth rates of between 6.5% and 7%, having affordable energy prices is very important, and the Trump presidency might actually make a big difference in that regard, and probably going forward as well. So one of the very important pillars of being able to sustain high growth is energy affordability and availability.
Sagar Manthan, South Asia's largest maritime thought leadership forum, concluded in New Delhi. The maiden edition of Sagar Manthan, the Great Oceans Dialogue, aims to foster knowledge on maritime sector and provide premier global platform for leaders and policymakers to share and shape actionable insights towards effective decisions for a future-ready, sustainable and efficient marine sector. As India's role as an important and key maritime player has increased manifold, the platform offers a premier platform for everyone to set the course for maritime sector's collective journey onwards.
To achieve the blue economy, how green transport will be met a reality by developing green port, green shipping, etc., etc. I believe this is what the Great Ocean Dialogue Sagar Manthan have contributed, and I believe it would be great helpful to each others. All the maritime nation will be benefited out of this event, and they will work as a family to have a holistic working relationship within the nation.
Of the ocean economy that serves India's interests as it moves from $4 trillion to $10 trillion, which places India at the high table of the big transitions underway, whether they are the green transitions, whether they are sustainability focused transitions, whether they are transitions to try and demonopolize the sector, which is currently seeing in many ways one or two actors dominating it.
Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. Confederation of Indian Industry on Tuesday awarded women for their excellent work in the field of science. Chief Scientific Advisor Professor Ajay Sood and Niti Aayog member Dr. V.K. Saraswat expressed their views regarding the role of women in science, technical, engineering and mathematics, or STEM. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh addressed the Air Force Commanders Conference at Air Headquarters in the national capital on Tuesday. The minister commended the force for its dedication and professionalism in safeguarding the nation's sovereignty. Minister expressed confidence in the Air Force's capability and capacity building more efficient and effective in keeping with the national aims and aspirations. Indian Army launched an initiative, Shiksha at Your Doorstep, to provide basic and primary education to children of Bakarwal tribe in Jammu and Kashmir's Akhnur on Tuesday. It is an open school where children were provided education by going to areas of Bakarwal tribe. The 55th edition of the International Film Festival of India, IFFI, is set to begin on Wednesday in Goa with some 180 international films from 81 countries to be screened till November 28th. Preparations are in full swing as the festival will witness the presence of renowned personalities from the film industry. Here's a report on what to look forward to in this festival.
Camera, IFFI. The stage is all set for the 55th edition of the International Film Festival of India in the heart of Goa, and preparations are in full swing for the mega event. This year's program features films across 16 curated segments, ensuring there's something for everyone. From heartwarming dramas to intense documentaries, every corner of cinema is represented. Films making their national and international premieres at IFFI add to the excitement, allowing audiences a sneak peek at the groundbreaking stories. Apart from that, country of focus is Australia. Speaking on its importance, Ms. Vrunda Desai, Joint Secretary Films, said that this not only strengthens bilateral relationship between the two countries, but also open doors to global film market.
This year Australia is the country of focus, and we have the opening film from Australia, as well as there is a roundtable conference between the producers, the Indian filmmakers and Australian filmmakers.
For the first time ever, an OTT platform of Prasar Bharati will also be released on the opening ceremony at IFFI. The Prasar Bharati OTT booth will provide festival goers with an opportunity to explore the expanding world of OTT. From culture to cuisine, IFFI is going to be a delight for sign lovers. And it also provides an opportunity to own the skills of young volunteers.
I'm very excited, like we are getting to learn something new which will be helpful for our career as we are students of hospitality.
The festival, which is spread across 9 days, kickstarts on the 20th of November and will go on till the 28th of it in Goa.
From showcasing young minds to having a particular space for women filmmakers, from the first online portal to having the first OTT platform, and also from honoring the legends of Indian cinema to having the first ever IFFI, IFFI 2024 is celebrating cinema at its best. So don't forget to tune in and follow IFFI with DD India from the 20th till the 28th of November. With camera person Alok, this is Deepika reporting for DD India from Goa.
You're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for sports. The Special Olympics Asia-Pacific bocce and bowling competition kicked off with a grand opening ceremony at the Tyagaraja Sports Complex in New Delhi. Vice President of India, Jagdeep Dhankar, inaugurated this event, praised the dedication of the special athletes. The event also saw Union Sports Minister Mansukh Mandavia and President of Special Olympics Bharat, Dr. Malika Nadda, in attendance.
The opening ceremony of the Special Olympics Asia-Pacific bocce and bowling competition was held at the Tyagaraja Sports Complex in New Delhi. Vice President of India Jagdeep Dhankar graced the ceremony as the chief guest and declared the games open. Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar expressed his admiration for the athletes and everyone supporting the event.
By way of these games, we are celebrating something very important, and that is inclusion and dignity. Under the visionary Prime Minister Narendra Modi, several affirmative steps have been taken to provide an ecosystem to them, to unleash their energy and potential, to realize their hopes and aspirations, to realize their dreams. And I've seen this myself while greeting the parading athletes.
The opening ceremony witnessed a grand display of cultural performances and a special march past by the participating countries. Union Sports Minister Mansukh Mandavia, along with the President of Special Olympics Bharat Dr. Malika Nadda, also attended the event. On this occasion, Mansukh Mandavia said that the government is fully committed to supporting the Special Olympics movement.
Today, I am pleased to announce that the government, under the dynamic leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, is fully committed to supporting Special Olympics Bharat and ensuring that our nation provides an inclusive sports environment for athletes of all abilities.
It is a moment of celebration, unity and inspiration with athletes from 12 countries who are representing not only their teams but also the spirit of inclusion, the spirit of courage and the resilience that Special Olympics embodies. Our presence today reinforces our commitment to building an inclusive world, one where every individual, regardless of their disabilities, is celebrated and empowered.
The Special Olympics Asia-Pacific Bocce and Bowling competition is the first of its kind in India, empowering athletes with intellectual and developmental disabilities aged 22 and above. The tournament has introduced bowling as a competitive sport in India for the first time. The 4-day competition will see special athletes from 12 countries vying for top honours in both sports. Sports Desk, DD India.
That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan this QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.